As a young midshipman aboard HMS Victory on blockade duty, Thomas had not felt such silence since his arrival at sea, as thick and enveloping as night itself, for moonless sky stretched above him like an unblemished canvas of obsidian paint. The gentle sway of the vessel through calm waters was occasionally broken by a soft whisper carried aloft on cool air, while distant calls from lookout perched in rigging threads echoed into oblivion. Each moment felt eternal and yet fleeting as he lay upon his berth, with only thoughts for company, the same ones that kept him awake since the break of dawn, memories of home, dreams unfulfilled, promises unsung under stars now shrouded by darkened clouds beyond reach from this maritime warden. On nights such as these, when time seemed to stand still in its relentless march forward, and every heartbeat felt like a century passed between sighs of the sea's breath upon his face, Thomas found solace within himself, a world wherein he was an unyielding mariner caught forever amidst waves that bore no name or destination but their own. The endless expanse before him lay as vast and empty as possibilities yet to be discovered in dream-soaked reveries. It stretched into infinity, a silent behemoth of water underneath the dark velvet heavens above, which seemed almost tangible with his longing for things unseen beyond these waves. His mind wandered backward through time and space to moments before this life or child playing at seaside villages by their English cliffs, where each wave was a friend, not an adversary. The warmth of sunlight on his face, that once felt like nature's embrace, now replaced with cool night air pressed against skin. He remembered laughter shared among crewmates and friends whose names were as distant to him as France itself, or place untouched by youthful naivete, but one which he could only observe from afar, its stories intertwined within histories written in books or passed down through the taverns back home. In these hours of solitude and reflection that often found Thomas alone with his thoughts on deck at nightfall under starless, skeest world above, as still as a painting come to life by candlelight against velvety darkness, his eyes would inevitably drift toward the sea beyond, tracing its every motion like an old friend long lost and yet ever present. The very waters seemed alive with tales whispered down through generations of sailors before him. Their depths held secrets only spoken by waves crashing against weather-worn shores, or rippling on sunlit days when life appeared simple enough to be understood without question or language he knew so well but had not always listened. Yet, even as his mind danced along these memories, the call of duty would resurface with an unwelcome urgency like a siren's song cutting through hushed waters. It was time for watch again, and eyes to remain fixed upon horizon, where light might be seen if only faintly breaking across watery expanses beyond. With every shifting guard, Thomas felt the weight of responsibility, a soldier not on land, but at sea, who found himself caught between life's exhilarating promise against its abiding threat. He was a man condemned to watch for threats that might never come, while dreaming impossible adventures born from fantasy and longing. And then, as the hours grew late and fatigue threatened, unsteadiness in his legs or lassitude within his chesters, if each labored step took him further away from home than ever before amid this foreign sea of blackness that seemed to swallow all hope into its depths, a sudden trembling would run through the very timbers themselves, a harbinger not heard but felt. It was an ominous shudder in his bones. It resonated with echoes, as if sound itself were made from ice and stone instead of wood-carved planks that creaked underfoot upon every move he took along this sentinel's pathway through darkness, past dreamers who knew not the meaninglessness within these nightly watches. Suddenly a roar, as thunderous in its silence when it came without warning or forewarning, that pierced across sky and sea alike, a sound so brutal Thomas felt his heart shatter against ribcage, each beat an echo of primordial fears resurfacing like spectres long buried beneath the surface. An unseen hand seemed to grasp at his very soul, as if it were made from leaden dread or terror that could not be quelled by prayer nor reasoned explanation. This amidst a symphony of creaking timbers and whispering leads rustling in nocturnal harmony, Thomas found himself ensconced within his thoughts, or solitary figure dwarfed by an expansive canopy that stretched far beyond the horizon. His journey had not been foreseen. It was a path he stumbled upon while chasing shadows of fantasy and longing into realms born from lullabies past, where impossible adventures were as commonplace as breaths drawn in search of air untainted by fear or regret. As the clock struck an hour marked only for dreamers who dare traverse beyond their comfort zone, switching time when nightfall and dawn embrace briefly before one another yields to daylight's dominion, Thomers could no longer deny a growing weariness that had settled into his limbs. The weight of the sky seemed unbearable, pressing down with an oppressive gravity, as if Atlas himself were shouldering its burden upon this forlorn traveller in search of solace, or perhaps something more tangible, within these nightly watches. Every step forward was a battle against invisible forces that sought to hold him where he stood, her guardian sentinel whose silence hummed with secrets and stories untold, his pathway through darkness punctuated by the hollow echo of footfalls on wood-carved planks beneath. The night became an entity unto itself. It wrapped around Thomas like a shroud woven from blackness without end, swallowing hope into depths as immeasurable and unfathomable as its own essence. It was then that the trembling began, a prelude to dread manifest within bone rather than heart or mind alone, as if resonating with a chilling harmony only felt when one's soul stood too close to abyssal whispers. This shudder coursed through Thomas and his Caesaro our dead timbers alike. It was an omen that spoke of things lurking beyond the veil of reality. No sooner had he perceived its touch than nature itself seemed to pause in anticipation, a roar as thunderous when unleashed, yet silent without warning, or for warning struck across sky and sea alike, a sound so brutal that it appeared Thomas himself might shatter against the ribcage of existence. Each heartbeat became an echo not just within his own chest, but reverberated through him as though he were made from leaden dread, unmelted by prayer or reason's explanations, or terror too primordial to be quelled without recourse to something beyond the tangible realms of earthly understanding. As if sensing his soul exposed raw and naked upon this pathway through darkness past dreamers who knew not what it is, nor why their night watches carried such weight as stones within a grave or chains around one's waist, an unseen hand grasped at Thomas with an intimacy that spoke of claws tempered by the very essence they wished to protect. And though he was neither prepared for this confrontation, nor did it come without warning, in its silence, as deafening as thunderous roars within a still night, Skyfy's entity approached him not as foe, but as potential ally, or perhaps another traveller of his kind who had been swept away by the relentless tides of their shared reality. In this moment, where shadows danced with light, and time seemed to fold upon itself like origami creatures, too complex for mortal minds, Thomers understood that within every heartbeat lay a story yet untold. Each breath whispered secrets only the night could bear witness to without judgment or condemnation. And so, beneath stars cloaked in velvet obscurity and moonlight veiled by clouds drawn together like curtains upon an invisible stage, and traveller found solace not just within himself, but amidst a world that had forgotten how to listen between the lines of their own tales. He discovered kinship with those who tread similar paths, woven from threads both sorrowful and beautiful, entangled in narratives too complex for human understanding alone. For nowhere else could one find solace than on this sentinel's pathway through darkness, or place where dreamers know not just the meaninglessness within these nightly watches, but also discover an unspoken camaraderie that binds them together in shared experiences of fear and wonder, love lost too soon, or found unexpected by chance. It was here, amidst this realm beyond reality's bounds, where fantasies blur with the essence of truth itself, where hope mingles indistinguishably with despair, as if each his eyes adjusted to a realm that seemed less ordinary than most humans might dare believe, their place between worlds, as he remembered from his nightly vigils under the stars and moonlight dance across shadowy forests of memory, where dreamers often tread, their souls seeking refuge in mysteries not even daybreak could fully illuminate. Thomas had become one such traveller since that fateful evening when shadows began to speak with voices he barely recognized within himself. It was then the journey through darkness truly starts on her sentinel's path, where only those who understand solitude's embrace would ever dare tread, and tonight his heart ached for kinship in this lonely pilgrimage. As Thomas ventured deeper into a grove of ancient trees, whose roots grasped earth as if to anchor them through time itself, a place known only by those who feel the weight upon their shoulders when night's silence presses too close, threatening solitude even amidst companionship. He felt an inexplicable pull towards one such tree. Its branches swayed with movements reminiscent of a comfort that could not be forced, but rather found within moments like these, where the past and future met at its trunk to share secrets beyond time, whispering promises only understood by hearts intertwined across lifetimes in silent conversation. Thomas approached it as if drawn towards an old friend he had once known. He rested against a gnarled bark that seemed almost alive with knowledge of ages gone and yet to come, ere sentinel standing watch over realms unseen by human eyes. Its presence felt like comforting arms encircling his shoulders when the world outside faded into nothingness. As if in response to Thomas's silent pleas for understanding, or perhaps a simple acknowledgment of shared sorrow and beauty found within this ethereal walk through twilight, he heard an echo resonating from deep within, reminding him that even those who wander these paths alone carry fragments of stories untold or tapestry interwoven with threads gossamer-thin yet capable enough to bind souls across realms. As the first rays crept above horizon's edge casting prismatic hues upon dewdrops and leaves, Thomas felt an inexplicable urge within him recall beckoning from beyond, where dreamers could only glimpse truth like fragments of a mosaic that lay just out of reach. It was here between the world he knew as home, with all its cacophony and turmoil. It seemed too much for mortal senses to endure, yet Thomas felt an unwavering resolve within him, a promise whispered by ancient spirits whose tales were etched into every stone underfoot. Thomas understood that this journey through darkness was not simply about finding solace among shadows or kinship with those who tread similar paths. It was a pilgrimage towards understanding the language of his own heart, where each step, taken upon twilight's threshold, echoed like footsteps on sacred ground. His spirit danced between realms as if guided by an unseen hand or beacon leading him through veils not visible to eyes that sought only clarity in daylight's harsh glare. He knew then, beneath the watchful gaze of stars still clinging upon night's last breath before dawn would chase them away once more, the path wound onward and deeper into places where twilight embraced earth with tender care, an enclave veiled from prying eyes that long for nothing beyond the mundane. Here Thomas found himself among entities whose very essence seemed to defy time itself, as they whispered secrets held within heartbeats older than mountains and minds too young at their core. It was a realm where one could lose themselves entirely yet remain unscathed, a sanctuary hidden from human sight, but accessible only for those willing to seek it out amidst the chaos of daylight's tyranny. This place held no answers nor sought them, existing solely as refuge and understanding between souls who shared a language beyond words. As Thomas continued his journey under watchful moonbeams that flickered like candle flames illuminating hidden Thomas's, feet whispered against cobblestones cool from night's caress, as he followed an ancient path that twisted like a question mark into itself, its ends kissing before receding back into shadows only to meet again further down the road. With every step forward on this never-ending loop of stone and earth, his heart seemed lighter. It hummed with psalms from times when air carried different melodies, or time where magic was as commonplace as water flowed in rivers. As he walked beneath a tapestry woven by the night sky itself, stars danced across constellations that told tales of forgotten heroes and lost loves. They watched over him with their soft luminescence like guardian spirits from an era when magic was not just present, but pulsating through every drop of dew. The gentle embrace of twilight wrapped around Thomas, enveloping his form in hues that defied the spectrum known to those who lived by day's lighter kaleidoscope, where reality seemed more fluid than solid underfoot and within reach at any moment. Ahead lay a clearing veiled not just from human eyes, but also from Thomas's own skepticism, which he had learned through whispers in the night to harbor beneath his breath like an unwanted shadow that could never be fully dispelled by sunlight's return. It was here amidst twisted trees whose bark bore patterns of living history and leaves whispering secrets with each rustle under moonbeams that Thomas found himself standing before a portal, carved not from wood but reality itself. It shimmered like the surface of water reflecting starlight. The world beyond was an echo chamber where time seemed to sway gently back and forth in rhythmical pulses that resonated with his very being, or place untouched by human greed or sorrow, save for those rare souls who sought refuge here from the cacophony of existence. As Thomas crossed into this realm born purely out of twilight's final kiss on earth's cheek before dawn dared to claim its reign once more, he felt an embrace that transcended mere physical touch. It was a connection woven directly with his own spirit, and acknowledgment from the world itself. The realm unfolded around him like pages of an unwritten book eager for ink, each element revealing layers upon layers, as if knowledge had been cradled within its essence and yearned to be set free by Thomas's open heart alone. Here was a land where silence spoke volumes more than words ever could. The air carried the scent of blooming flowers that opened only under moonlight, their petals unfurling like delicate origami creations crafted from pure enchantment or botanical wonderland, existing Sol 05 in harmony with its visitors who came seeking solace and understanding rather than conquest or dominion. Thomas met eyes not his own, but a pair of knowing gazes that seemed to look through him, seeing right into the core, where all fears lay buried, a meeting place for souls across lifetimes, if only those were capable enough during their daylight hours on earthly soil. Here they found unity in shared experiences and pain. The language spoken among these entities was not of words, but a symphony composed from emotions deep within the heart's chamber, where fear often dwelled, uninvited dialect that resonated with Thomas' soul, guiding him deeper into this refuge beyond human perception, yet accessible to those who sought it out earnestly. Through twisted paths and gentle streams of liquid luminescence flowing between stones carved by forgotten hands long ago, but whose designs still held power over the passage, here Thomas felt himself drawn inexorably toward a glade where trees bowed low to whisper secrets known only when night envelops reality. Here, amidst ancient ropes that cradled earth and sky with tender embrace, while reaching downward like fingers of time itself, searching for beginnings rather than ends, he found an altar upon which was etched the story of his own journey, a tale not yet told, but ready to unfold through shared experiences between him and those who had traversed this path before. The heartbeats within Twilight's realm spoke in rhythms that harmonized with Thomas' pace, leading him toward a clearing where shadows melded into darkness so complete it seemed like night itself took former sanctuary for those who sought to lose themselves but never their essence. As he walked through this threshold of understanding among souls bound by no earthly laws or constraints, Thomas felt his own spirit expand, embracing the freedom that comes from stepping beyond. As Thomas stood within that hallowed clearing where shadows and darkness merged into a comforting cloak of night's own making, he took a deep breath. Air here seemed to hum with ancient melodies unheard by human ears, but felt profoundly in the heart. The trees had been his silent guardians on this journey. Their leaves no longer rustled above him, as if recognizing that it was time for Thomas' tale to take its place among legends whispered beneath canopies of emerald and amber hues, where starlight danced through gaps in the boughs. The path he had walked led here a pilgrimage not only across this mystical landscape, but also within himself, as he sought understanding beyond what his mind could fathom or science explain. A voyage to touch something elemental and sacred that resided at the intersection of myth, nature, and personal revelation. Inside him stirred an urge for release or desire, not just for physical relief, but also spiritual awakening, as he gazed upon his reflection in the still waters below, ancient stones carved with runes, only visible to those who understood their calling. Thomas' eyes traced over symbols that seemed alive under moonlight, each a key unlocking doors within him and inviting stories yet told by souls of yore whose echoes could be felt deep down into his marrow, or symphony played on the strings of fate itself, as if these stones knew where he was meant to go. As Twilight's realm began its final surrender, embracing night in full with Tendon 019C and a comfort that only darkness can provide, Thomas felt his spirit unfurl like mist over moorland at Bourne's first lighter sensation, as if he were no longer entirely of this world, but one within another. He knelt upon the mossy earth, allowing himself to become part of something transcendental that had been here long before him and would continue far beyond his own finite existence. A cycle immutable yet ever-changing, like seasons themselves or tales told round campfires under starlit skies. His spirit danced with visions within the woodlands, embracer mistake of color, light, and shadow that painted narratives upon Thomas' soul, as if he were both author and audience in this unfolding sarder of self-discovery, where every heartbeat was a note contributing to an eternal melody. A gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming night desmer flower that appeared only when day turned into dusk, releasing fragrances not just felt by nostrils, but experienced as tangible emotions wrapped in petals and dewdrops. These were moments crafted for Thomas alone. Here was where he could taste the essence of time itself on his tongue, each drop an epoch or eon distilled into a flavor that lingered long after it had been swallowed, as if every sip bridged gaps between worlds and eras in its own way. And then there was silence, not the absence of sound, but rather depth wherein no echo could survive their profound quietude, like a heartbeat within one's chest that speaks louder than thunder, resonating with an ancient patience, as if this place had waited for centuries to reveal itself just right. Thomas' footsteps became whispers upon the verdant floor. His breathing slowed until it was no different from rustling leaves or trickling streams whose waters were imbued with a liquid luminescence that seemed born of stardust lights guiding those who wander without direction but seek purpose. With each step Thomas felt an awakening within him, his soul stretching outward like roots seeking nutrients in soil rich not just with life-giving minerals and waters, but also memories of all the pilgrims before him or lineage written upon every leaf and stone. This was a place where time folded into itself, creating loops within which one could wander eternally, as if standing at crossroads between epochs or dimensions. Here did realms converge in tangible form that defied the laws of physics yet obeyed them, a very essence of paradox encapsulated. Here was a world where shadows were not merely absence but presence, darkness not just an end to light, but beginning for mysteries untold. It held Thomas captive in its splendor and majesty, while still permitting him passage through the threshold back toward reality, or doorway etched with runes of his own essence. And so he returned from this otherworldly refuge, carrying stories that pulsed within the time Thomas spent within those hallowed grounds, stretched into days he could not count on his fingers. It felt like moments of eternity, where every touch upon stone, every breath drawn in between realms whispered secrets that only souls as weary and seeking for purpose were meant to hear. The world beyond the threshold had become a place devoid of its former vibrance and monochrome streets echoing with silence rather than the cacophony he was accustomed to, yet within him there burned an ember that refused to be extinguished by mundanity's encroaching shadow. Upon returning from his pilgrimage of self-discovery and revelation, Thomas found himself drawn back into the everyday life he had so easily left behind, the very notion seeming like an illusion, as fragile as a soap bubble against the warmth of memory's touch upon him. The world felt different. His senses were heightened by tales that pulsed within, stories not yet told but lived through with every fibre of being he possessed. One evening, under twilight's last glimmers before nightfall claimed dominion over the sky once more, Thomas found himself at a crossroads, an intersection where human paths met and diverged in an endless symphony that danced to no one's baton but fate itself. As he stood there, his hand resting upon the cold metal of street lamp post, as if offering silent prayer for guidance, or perhaps just seeking comfort from familiarity amidst uncertainty, a voice approached him with gentle assurance, a stranger whose presence felt like an answer that had been waiting in silence to speak its name all along. "Are you lost?" asked Emily, her eyes holding the reflection of stars Thomas could no longer see but remembered so vividly from his journey's end and beginning alight. They were mirrored within them as if each star was a memory etched upon water's surface with light itself for liquid luminescence that seemed to pulse in tandem with the beating of their hearts. Thomas, whose mind had been awash for so long without thought or direction other than towards purpose and self-exploration within those ancient grounds where time folded into loops as if they were threads woven by fate's own hand to create tapestries that told tales even the gods themselves could not comprehend. "I am," he replied, his voice a mere whisper lost amidst vast expanses of thought and feeling, or symphony played on strings plucked with every heartbeat since stepping through reality's doorway back into existence, where questions were just as important to answer as the world itself seemed insistent upon providing. And so it was that Thomas found himself embarking once more onto paths less trodden, this time not in search of forgotten places or answers hidden within landscapes saturated with history and legend, but rather seeking Emily, or kindred spirit, whose essence resonated harmoniously alongside his own. With each step taken under the watchful gaze of constellations that seemed to lean closer as if curious about this union between two souls drawn together by invisible forces beyond their control or comprehension. Their journey took them through hidden alleyways and forgotten gardens, where wildflowers bloomed with an intensity so overwhelming it threatened to blind those who dared gaze upon its beautier world within a world that pulsed with life's raw essence, unfettered by human hands or watchful eyes. Here did realms converge in tangible form, where dimensions not unlike the one Thomas had found himself retreating into became accessible for those who possessed hearts brave enough to seek them, and were willing to endure whatever price such journeys might demand of their souls' strength and resilience against time's relentless march forward. It was within these hidden places that the whispers grew louder. Voices from beyond realms conversed in hushed tones as if sharing secrets meant only for those who wander without direction but seek purpose, and found themselves entangled with spirits of ancient beings whose stories were etched upon every leaf and stone within these sacred spaces. And so it was that Thomas discovered Emily's own tale intertwined inseparably with his, two souls bound by fate's invisible threads, as if they had always been meant to meet at this very crossroads or destiny written not just on pages of history, but upon the fabric of existence itself. For every step taken together under starlit skies or through sun-drenched fields where time seemed suspended in an eternal now, for all moments spent unraveling mysteries that defied human understanding, Thomas stood at the precipice of a forgotten valley, where shadows mingled with light to form an endless twilight, his heart echoing with Emily's presence that seemed always near but never quite close enough. Here was their sanctuary, a place untouched by time or human ambition. Only here could the veils between worlds grow thin and let them commune in secrecy with ancient guardians of knowledge whose wisdom flowed as ceaselessly as a river cut through stone. They had traveled together, their spirits entwined like two melodies harmonizing on nature's grandest stage, each step forward, unearthing forgotten law and weaving it into the tapestry of Thomas. Memories that Emily always seemed to share with him in some intimate whisper. As they walked beneath a sky ablaze with stars, reminiscent of an ember-filled hearth within their hearts, Thomas felt as if he had known her forever, a sentiment not born from mere chance, but the kindling of souls meeting amidst realms unseen to ordinary eyes. Emily's laughter echoed off ancient cliffs and through canyons that held stories too old for words. Yet in their shared silence they understood volumes about each other without uttering a single syllable or symphony played between the rustling of leaves and lapping waves against time-worn stones. On this night, as with so many before it, Thomas offered Emily his hand not out of habit, but from an unspoken promise that they were bound to find truths in each other's eyes, or commitment made beneath the gaze of a world beyond their own, where celestial blind bodies danced around them and time held no sway. Their first encounter had been under such skies, when Thomas felt an unexplainable pull towards Emily, as if she were always meant to be his companion through every revelation. This place offered a convergence of their paths at the very crossroads that fate itself seemed fondest to mark with significance. Here they found themselves again, where once there had been curiosity about each other's past. Now lay a shared history so intricate and interwoven it was as if two halves of one story were always destined to merge into wholeness beneath this eternal twilight sky. They moved through the valley with purposeful strides that seemed guided by an unseen force, a journey across landscapes where each hill, river, and grove held keys to understanding their intertwined souls amidst worlds beyond human ken. They spoke of dreams shared in whispers, as if afraid lest the power within might awaken forces they had yet to fully comprehend, but always found solace knowing that here, at this nexus, no secret was lost and every truth held its place upon reality's threshold. The night deepened around them, while tales of ancient spirits wove themselves into their shared consciousness, tales told not by human lips or ink on parchment, but as living memories that pulsed with the very essence of life itself within these sacred confines where time bowed to wonder and awe. It was here, under this celestial canopy, Thomas realized his own tale had been entangled not just by coincidence or chance, but through intentions set forth in moments when destiny cast its die before mortal eyes could hope to see the pattern emerge. Together they sought answers hidden within layers of time that peeled back under their touch, revealing paths once taken and futures yet unseen. A treasure trove where every stone told not just history but prophecies as well, where echoes from epochs past found voice in the rustling leaves and whispering winds. As they journeyed through this liminal space between what was, is, and might be again under different stars, Thomas understood that their bond had transcended beyond simple companionship. It held an anchor to timeless realms where heartbeats resonated with the drum of eternity, and everlasting echo felt deep within. They paused in silent reverence before a grove famed for revealing insights about one's true self, and here did they stand side by side as if no distance had parted them since their first meeting beneath star-kissed skies, where Emily's eyes spoke volumes of gratitude to her companion, who shared in the unravelling of mysteries that time itself seemed determined not to conceal. And so, with every step forward and backward through this hallowed ground, they travelled a journey without end, but bound by an understanding deeper than words could articulate. Thomas knew he would in chapter 8 of our tale woven through time and eternity. Thomas felt a gentle warmth envelop his soul as he stood with Emily before that ancient grove, where one's true essence was mirrored in nature's own reflection, or place known to few, but understood by all who dare seek its wisdom. The air here spoke of countless untold stories, and the trees around them hummed softly like a choir whose voices were felt rather than heard. Their leaves rustled with memories as they danced delicately in the wind's caressing fingers. The sunlight broke through canopy-shrouded gaps to touch upon Thomas' face, its golden tenderness reminding him that he was no longer merely a seeker, but part of something far greater, a thread woven into this very tapestry they now trod with reverent steps. Emily too felt the sun's benediction on her cheeks and in her heart as she glanced at Thomas, whose presence had become an unspoken constant throughout their shared journey through time's labyrinthine corridors. As twilight approached imperceptibly, like a tender lover slipping into the embrace of nightfall's allure, they continued to explore this hallowed ground, where each step was both forward and backward in understanding, an endless pilgrimage through memory's sacred space that offered neither conclusion nor disillusionment, but an unbroken continuity. They stood by the grove as if no days had passed since their first encounter under starlight's kiss, where time seemed to fold upon itself like origami creatures of legend, or shared reverence for moments lived and yet to come that transcended mere companionship into a sacred communion. The patterns on the ground beneath them were not just soil but manuscript pages etched with stories, waiting patiently in silence, echoing silent testimonies to epochs long gone and others still whispered by wings of change across eras as distant as stars themselves, yet intimately connected through sheer human experience, like two souls intertwined. Within the heartwood's deepest recesses lay patterns that shone with an ethereal glow, a map imprinted not in lead or parchment, but carved by life itself, for language understood only when one truly listens to its silent song and follows where it leads. Thomas knew from within these ancient bonds of earth's creation they would find truths about their shared journey that no other path might reveal, secrets whispered in the rustle of leaves like a soft-spoken lullaby, guiding them through darkness towards light with every step forward and backward taken together. As night began to settle upon this liminal space between worlds, or place where time folded into itself as easily as pages turning within hands that held one another close in silent understanding, Emily reached out her hand toward Thomas' heartbeat, which matched hers in rhythm like a drum echoing throughout eternity's endless halls. Their fingers entwined not just with physical touch but the unbreakable link of souls journeying through history and beyond, as one, or connection forged by shared discovery, love deeper than words could express or time's relentless march dare to erode away like dunes reshaped by ceaseless wind. And so they stood side by side amidst this grove, famed not only for its revelations, but also as testament that some bonds transcend mere companionship and become anchors tethered within timeless realms, where heartbeats resonate with eternity's drummer melody of love playing on strings spun from the very fabric of existence itself. Their path continued to wind through this sacred ground, each step a testament to their shared pilgrimage, not just as lovers, but seekers after truth in history's depth and mystery, like two explorers charting courses across uncharted waters, or mapless journey where every discovery led them further into themselves, yet also brought newfound understanding of the world they strode through hand in hand. The moon, a faithful sentry to their voyage's continuance, rose higher in its arc above, as if acknowledging with silver light each revelation found within these ancient grounds, where history was not just told, but live, or living narrative embraced by those who would listen and learn from echoes of the past that resonated through time's corridor. As night deepened around them, their bond seemed to grow stronger with every shared secret unveiled beneath this grove's canopy. They were no longer just two individuals, but a confluence where streams merged into rivers, and in chapter 9 of their journey through time and love's embrace, Emma and James found themselves in a grove that whispered with ancestral secrets as they walked its ancient paths hand in hand, or place where history itself seemed to hold them close like the bonds between starlight threads. It was here, beneath the watchful gaze of an ageless oak tree, gnarled and wise beyond measure, that their quiet communion deepened into a shared reverence for all things past, as they discovered inscriptions etched by hands long gone, but whose stories were never truly lost to time's relentless flow. Each symbol was like an ancestor's fingerprint upon the earth, every hieroglyph a tale penned in shadows and light that only those who dared listen could understand. The grove had been their companion for days, nor place where they felt most at peace, as if each leafy bough cradled stories not yet told, but whispering softly on the winds of change. Emma traced her fingertips along a bas-relief depicting two figures in dialogue with what seemed to be an ethereal presence between them. She and James could sense their own reflection here, amongst this timeless tableau, and omen that they too were part of something far greater than themselves. Their path took on a sacred quality, as if guided by invisible hands weaving through the fabric of time itself, to lead two souls down an ancestral road back in pursuit of understanding and connection, not just between each other, but with those who had trodden these same stones before them. James found himself drawn irresistibly toward a small mound, where ancient fires once cracked a primal call that awakened memories buried within his own heart's soil, from which he was learning to excavate and cherish anew the fragments of who he truly wished to be, for better or worse. The grove seemed alive as it responded with its rustling voice through a chorus of leaves that swayed in hushed tones while night enveloped them like velvet drapes drawn over history's stage at scene, where the moonlight danced upon their faces, casting silvery halos around Emma's eyes and James' kind smile as they stood together with a unity found only within this place between two worlds. As twilight deepened into nightfall, time seemed to fold inwardly like origami creases that shaped each moment anew. The past became their present, while future mysteries lay just beyond reach, yet eager for discovery as they shared whispered secrets and tales of yore within this sanctuary's embrace. This grove, which had been a refuge from life's relentless noise until then, now served not only to comfort, but also challenge the mad crucible wherein their spirits were forged stronger by the elements they faced together in solitude amidst echoes of antiquity that resonated through time's corridor. Emma and James delved deeper into understanding themselves as historians who could traverse epochs, seeking truth not only to share with each other, but also to bequeath upon future generations a legacy woven from the very threads they now walked upon, a testament of love eternal within this hallowed ground, where time held no dominion and all moments were equal. Their footsteps grew more purposeful as their bond strengthened with each secret unveiled beneath the grove's canopy, like explorers charting courses across undiscovered waters, or mapless journey through history's depth, where every revelation led them further into themselves, yet also brought newfound understanding of world they strode through hand in hand. The air around them seemed to thrum with the energy that once coursed freely in this sacred place, as if nature itself acknowledged their presence and purpose within its timeless embrace, or shared pilgrimage not just between lovers, but seekers after truths nestled deep within history's heartbeats. As night's mantle enveloped them like an ancient cloak of stars woven from the dreams of countless generations, they found themselves standing before a grand fountain where waters still danced and whispered secrets just beneath their very feet, an elemental source that had sustained souls for centuries as it now refreshed Emma's parched lips. James reached out to touch her hand over the cool water's surface, leaving behind ripples of connection between them like echoes across time itself. Each drop seemed a memory and promise in liquid form, while they continued their search among these storied stones, or shared adventure into history, not just as observers, but participants woven tightly together within Chapter 10 of their journey into history's heartbeats and ancient whispers beneath a moonlit grove. Emma felt her eyelids growing heavier with every gentle sway towards slumber as James' tender words lulled them closer to sleeping hands. The night air carried the scent of wet earth and forgotten stores or perfume that could only belong to this place, where time seemed suspended in a timeless embrace, cradling their aspirations for truth within its bosom like delicate saplings nurtured by an ageless mother's heart. As the fountain's melodic murmur played accompaniment to James' soothing voice and Emma's deepening breathing, he began reciting tales of civilizations long gone and lover-weaving narratives with his words, like threads in a tapestry that bridged past and present. Each story seemed an invitation for them both into the very soul of history. Their shared reverie became one where fantasy melded seamlessly to fact, as they found themselves standing not just beside, but within each epoch he painted with his voice or pilgrimage through time woven in harmony. James. Stories flowed like rivers that once ran wild and free before being tamed by ambition's call. Tales of empires rising from the dust, monuments erected to defy both heaven and earth now humbled beneath their touch as they traced fingers over fractured stones whispering echoes of ancient days. These crumbling edifices stood testament not just to human endeavor, but also its ephemerality, a reminder that all things held transient breaths, even the mightiest and most grandiose ambitions sculpted by hands long returned unto dust themselves. As they meandered through ruins of temples dedicated to gods whose whispers were now just as silent in death's earshot as their own voices had become when speaking aloud before this sacred ground, Emmer found solace knowing that within these walls lay the essence of humanity's ceaseless quest for meaning, a shared journey punctuated by epochs and civilizations rising to meet fates not all too different from her own. James' tales took them through darkened ages where knowledge was lost like tears in rain, only for it to be rediscovered with fervor in you as humanity reached forward once more into the darkness of ignorance, seeking lighter, cycle repeated across generations and eras that they could sense rippling beneath their feet. The air grew cooler, still under a sky painted by stars like constellations etched onto nighttime's canvas, guiding them towards an age where ideas flowed as freely as rivers to the sea. Philosophers who contemplated existence and love with hands folded in silent prayer upon lap or table, an intellectual ballet of thoughts that transcended time itself. Emmer felt her own mind expanding like parchment stretched across a scroll, recording newfound insights within its fibers as James' tales unfurled history's vast expanse before them with the tenderness and precision of an artist coaxing vivid colors from his palette upon canvas, or storyteller painting their souls in hues drawn not just from words but shared experience. In this moment Emmer realized that every secret unveiled beneath the grove's canopy had served as a key turning within both her and James' hearts, each revelation leading them deeper into themselves while simultaneously guiding hand in hand towards understanding of world. They strode through Todfer, an intimate dance between two seekers amidst history's grandeur. The fountain before which they now stood, its waters still dancing under the moonlight, like liquid stars, descended upon earth for a brief moment in time to nourish and refresh them as their journey continued into sleep's embrace beneath blankets woven from stories told by ancient voices whispered through leaves. As James' voice quiet an ever-soothing balm that coaxed dreaming minds toward peaceful oblivion amidst the nighttime symphony of nature, Emmer felt her own heartbeat synchronizing with each storyteller's rhythm, their bond strengthening like threads interwoven in a tapestry where past and present met at eye level. She held tightly onto his hand, or lifeline that bridged not just two bodies, but also the gap between worlds, connecting them to every soul who had sought solace here throughout history's march forward through time's relentless flow, their shared pilgrimage a testament to humanity's enduring spirit of exploration and connection. And so as night wrapped its embrace around Emmer and James, like an ancient cloak, as Emmer and James sat underneath a grand oak tree whose ancient boughs had sheltered countless lovers before them, they both felt an overwhelming sense of peace enveloping their weary souls. The night air was crisp, carrying whispers from the past that seemed to echo through Emmer's mind with each rustling leaf, a reminder of stories untold in voices long silenced by time's passing sands. "I feel as though every soul who has ever sought solace here can sense our presence," James murmured, his gaze locked onto the twinkling stars above that seemed to hold secrets in their infinite dance across the spire's celestial map, guiding wanderers through history's labyrinthine corridors. Emmer smiled faintly. Her heart ached with a longing she didn't know existed until now, for connection beyond the physical realm where time could not separate them from those who had once found respite in these sacred grounds before their hearts were burdened by worldliness's relentless pace. As they watched two fireflies daringly navigate through moonbeams to find each other across a garden, Emmer and James realized that this night was more than just about them. It carried the whispers of humanity's enduring spirit throughout history. Taking her hand in his own with renewed understanding, she whispered softly, "Our journey here is not merely our story. It's woven into a greater tapestry where every soul seeking refuge has left its mark upon these grounds. Her words seemed to float like dandelion seeds on the breeze, each one finding fertile soil in James' heart as he looked deeply into her eyes. In those moments they were more than lovers. They became custodians of a legacy that transcended their fleeting existence and promised continuity beyond tomorrow's horizon. The couple continued to walk through the night towards an ancient stone bridge, one place where waters whispered tales from centuries past into Emma's eager ears, as if it was here they had come full circle in history themselves, its presence a tangible link between their love story and all others that would unfold beneath this very moon. As dawn began to creep upon the horizon with hesitant fingers of pink light touching down on dew-laden grass, James took Emma's hand gently, her gesture as ancient as time itself. His own heartbeat, now a shared rhythm, echoed in harmony by their footsteps across cobblestones worn smooth from the passage of millennia. They arrived at an old fountain surrounded by statues, each face etched with expressions that told tales of love and loss, or silent witness to countless human dramas unfolding before its basin throughout history's enduring play. Emma leaned in closer as they reached the water's edge. She cupped her hands beneath the cool flow just long enough for it to caress their skin, sending a shiver up James' spine, an ethereal touch that promised renewal and whispered of life beyond this earthly plane. "We are but travelers passing through," Emma said with reverence in her voice as she watched droplets cascade into the pool below. They seemed to carry away their worries like fallen leaves, leaving behind a clearer mind for contemplation amid nature's embrace. James took her hand once more and guided it toward his lips, a simple act that bridged souls across realms of existence where love transcended time's unyielding grasp upon their hearts, an offering to the spirits who had shared this place with them through generations before, as well as those yet to come. The kiss was tender and intimate beneath a sky now awash in soft golden light, her promise that even within life's transient moments there could be eternity found when two hearts resonate together under heaven's gaze. The couple then made their way back along the path they had wandered, with daylight filtering through leaves overhead, each step imbuing them furthered into a shared journey where time held no dominion over love's enduring pulse, or pilgrimage towards sleep that felt like returning home after journeys both far and near. As Emma lay her head upon James' shoulder within the shelter of their blankets, she found solace in his embrace. It was as if he could read thoughts unspoken from beneath furrowed brows, or silent communication born from souls entwined by shared experiences that transcended mere words. Together they closed their eyes to a world beyond the dreaming mind's reach. Surrendering, the air was filled with a serene coolness as night's embrace enveloped their zero unding, and James found Emma's hand in his own, a reaffirmation of love that had quietly bloomed within the garden they called home. They nestled back into bed after partaking in memories shared beneath canopies swaying with whispered secrets, each leaf a testament to their journey through countless dusks and dawns together, where time seemed but an echo against eternal hearts beating as one under the watchful eye of stars. Emma's breath melded into Jane's chest, a rhythm known only when spirits danced in unison across lifetimes shared both by those who had once tread this path and yet to come, their love a bridge spanning generations, like an ancient river carving through the landscape of history. It was here, beneath that golden hue, where time's relentless march could not claim them, for in each other's arms lay eternity found within moments tenderly embraced under heaven's grand designer sanctuary they had come to call home, a place beyond the ephemeral veil of waking life. James traced her profile with fingers that felt like roots running deep into his own. Each gentle touch was an echo from their past adventures and quiet conversations held in moments unbound by time's linear thread, each memory etched upon them, indelible as the constellations above which had guided sojourners before. He wrapped her close with a tenderness that spoke of understanding without words, his heartbeat synchronizing to hers like an ancient drum call summoning ancestors and descendants alike to their shared tableau painted against history's sprawling canvas, an offering where even now spirits whispered in the rustle of leaves around them. In this sacred space between breaths they found solace, a refuge from stormy seas navigated by souls entangled beyond mere physicality. Here their hearts conversed with ease, as if no years had passed their pilgrimage through dreams where every step was imbued deeper into the tapestry of shared existence. And tonight They sought sanctuary in sleep's embrace after traversing paths littered not just by earthly footsteps, but also those that transcended realms known and unseen to human eyes, or journeyed through dreamscapes where reality blurred with fantasy until it melded into one indistinguishable from the other. Their breaths synced in a dance of tranquillity, as if nature itself conspired against disturbance, an ethereal ballet that painted silver threads across Emmer's skin and James' ice, or canvas where dreamscapes unfolded with each heartbeat echoing like distant drums over rolling landscapes. They were explorers in the realm of sleep, their spirits wandering through lands untouched by waking life. Here they could traverse mountains that kissed skies and forests dense with whispered lore, a place where time held no dominion over love's enduring pulse or dream-born adventures. James' arms cradled Emmer closer, a vessel of comfort born from the journey through shared realms both waking and slumbering. His touch was an anchor to their essence as they slipped into sleep, where memories flickered like candlelight against encroaching shadows, or pilgrimage within dreams that felt less like travel, more akin to returning home. Together, hand in hand with the ghosts of yore and yet to come, joining their whispered lullabies under night's watchful gaze, they surrendered wholeheartedly into sleep's embrace, or farewell kiss upon lips that had tasted eternity before within this very garden where love bloomed timelessly. Emmer closed her eyes against the soft hum of their own heartbeats merging with earth's ancient rhythms, a symphony soothing to fretful minds. She felt as if sleep itself enfolded them in its nurturing arms, her promise that here, under these stars and leaves, they were safe from storms or shadows. James' presence was like the comforting continuity of seasons turning over years past yet not forgotten, a constant companion through joys and sorrows alike. For he bore within him an understanding beyond words, where shared dreamscapes could unravel fear's threads and weave instead tapestries rich with hope. As night deepened its hold around their intertwined figures, her cocoon of warmth against the cool fingers of time reaching out to claim them back into, as they lay there beneath a tapestry of constellations that seemed to mirror their intertwined fingers and hearts. Emmer's breathing slowed until it melded seamlessly with James'. The soft rustle of leaves in the garden whispered secrets only lovers could understand, secrets carried by dreamt-up zephyrs. This place was a sanctuary for them. Every bloom and blade held echoes of laughter, each shadow bore the weight of shared tears that had watered these roots over seasons, long past yet eternal in their memories together. James's fingers found Emmer's again with gentle familiarity, as his gaze rested upon her sleeping form, or tender touch against soft cheekbones like a poet tracing verses on parchment that only he knew the depth of its story could tell. In this intimate garden time had no dominion. Even now they were together beneath timeless boughs, where every heartbeat was an ode to their lover, melody older than stars and as enduring as stone. Emmer's breath became a lullaby within James' chest, its cadence matching the ancient rhythms of Mother Earth that pulsed just beneath his skin like liquid amber under moonlight. It was in these moments they transcended mere being, floating upon waves where thoughts and dreams melded into one another, their consciousness adrift on a sea without beginning or end, but with purpose found only within the depths of shared solace. The night deepened its embrace around them as if to shield against any thought that might intrude unbidden upon this sacred communion, or vigilant guardian keeping at bay not just otherworldly whispers, but also those darker echoes from their waking selves, which sought to sever rather than bind. James was a bastion of constancy. His heartbeat became the steady drum that beat in time with Emmer's own as they surrendered further into sleep's comforting folder, pair locked together, forever safe within this verdant cradle where love itself seemed immortalized among petals and leaves. And so it was when James finally closed his eyes beside hers that he felt himself become part of something ineffable, a shared dream state not bound by the laws of physics or time, but sustained purely on heartbeats echoing like soft pearls within an empty box or chamber, where light and dark danced together without fear, for they knew each other's steps beyond all doubt. Here, in this realm of sensory deprivation, liberated from worldly noise or worry, their spirits spoke directly to one another through the language of emotion. Every nuance was a verse added to an endless poem penned by two souls that had once been as estranged, now woven into each other's essence with threads unseen but felt. The garden itself seemed a living entity imbued with memories and promises of tomorrow, its existence entwined inextricably to their love story, which was no less than the very mythos that sustained it through centuries while they lay here together as if at home within this eternal embrace. Through dreams wherein time flowed like honey and emotions were colors too vivid for any mortal palate, Emma found solace. Her mind wandered freely amidst gardens of their own designer place, unmarred by fear or doubt, yet rich with the fragrance of joy. She understood now that in sharing this dreaming pilgrimage together they were healing not just themselves, but also mending any fractures love may have suffered along its journey through life's vicissitudes, for within these shared reveries lay a power to reweave and fortify the bonds of affection with renewed strength. As James watched over her, his presence became an anchor not just in waking reality, but also as they ventured into sleep's ocean, where even phantoms could learn humility before love's boundless compass that always pointed homeward to the heartbeat of their unity amidst a sea teeming with transient shadows. Here, within this verdurous sanctuary beneath stars, aglow like embers in night's sky and leaves whispering tales, older than civilizations themselves, love itself was a live air force, so potent that eventime dared not encroach upon its domain, but bowed reverently before it as kings to their queen. And when at last the first blush of dawn crept across Emmer's eyelids and painted them with hues too delicate for night's palette, James knew in chapter 14 of their shared dreamscape narrative, Emma and James found themselves in a serene valley, where rivers sang lullabies that rippled through emerald waters as they flowed into placid ponds, reflecting the pastel glow of an awakening sun. The air was laced with jasmine from flowers bending gracefully towards one another, swaying to a silent melody only heard in dreams or harmony, that resonated within their very souls as they stood side by side on the bank overlooking this lush vista of tranquility and hope. James reached out his hand tenderly, gently stirring Emma's fingers before she could pull them back to touch her face with kisses warm enough to melt away any remnants of nightmares, yet gentle as a mother's caress on the cheek of innocence lost and found anew. With each sip they took from their cups, adorned not just by steaming brews, but also encircled with delicate blossoms that seemed to bloom beneath its warmth, Emma felt her heart swell as she realized these shared moments were the very threads weaving a tapestry of unwavering love. Their journey through this garden had begun on their wedding day, when they vowed to cherish one another and support each other's passion that led them here, amidst nature's most profound expressions of beauty, where every leaf told a story of resilience against the storm. They understood now how love was like this garden. It required nurturing but also had an inherent strength to endure and flourish through seasons, both sunny and tempestuous alike, its roots delving deep into fertile soils enriched by a history of devotion. They shared told for a testament, not just in memory's eye. James spoke softly now that the world around them seemed less formidable within this dream world's embrace. His voice was like velvet draping over Emma's consciousness, wrapping her thoughts as one might swaddle a newborn with tenderness and an assurance of protection. Emma, he whispered with affection that had no fear of the nightmares they once knew too well to name directly, but recognized in their shared vulnerability during quiet hours when stars peek shyly from behind curtains heavy with dew. I am here for you always. Within this verdant embrace, where time seemed a curious visitor that hesitated at the garden's entrance before taking leave to roam elsewhere, a place not defined by years, but moments of pure being and becoming towed from anew, she could share her deepest fears without judgment. In dreaming, they discovered healing for wounds unseen on their faces, yet equally tender in spirit. A shared journey where love was the potent balm that whispered promises into every corner of consciousness, turning shadows cast by doubt and pain into mere puddles, reflective only of sunlight. The night's chill began to dissipate as they moved through this living dream space or place beyond seasons, where flowers bloomed perpetually under skies kissed with gold and crimson hues, signaling the approach of dawn without whispering alarm or disruption into sleep's delicate balance. Here, in their own creation, that stood defiant against time's relentless march forward, but within a realm untouchable by its sense, they found peace as they had never known before. For this garden was not just the backdrop to their love story, it became an intrinsic part of every chapter penned with devotion and care. As Emmer looked upon James's face illuminated softly in his hand's warmth, her smile that spoke volumes when words fell short, but never failed him here amongst this living mosaic where love was not just felt, it seemed to grow from the very earth. They stood. Ansh reached for her own cup of tea infused with petals and dew. She knew their journey through sleep's tapestry had gifted them an understanding that transcended waking hours. In dreaming together, embracing each other's fears as much as joys like the lilacs here which seemed to know of human worries, chose instead to open themselves fuller gesture for all who entered their private Eden. Within this sacred space, where echoes of laughter mingled with rustling leaves, every breeze carried whispers from generations past that found solace in the present moment's embrace. It was here they understood what love's true essence could look like when, unshackled by worldly concerns, Emma and James found themselves wrapped in an embrace that seemed to wrap around them as naturally as their own breaths or gentle squeeze of hands here, a soft press against one another's cheek there. It was intimacy born from the heart rather than necessity. In this secluded part of nature, where time felt suspended like dew upon morning leaves and shadows lingered in eternal twilight, their love had found its most authentic expression. The garden around them held stories, untold or history whispering through the rustling foliage that danced under a sky painted with hues of dusk's last kiss goodbye to daylight. Here was where they learned each other's souls, in places neither city lights nor distant horizons could ever reach. As their fingers intertwined like vines embracing an old oak tree, Emma felt the weight of her anxieties about leaving this place dissipate into nothingness or sentiment echoed by James, as he too found solace here amongst nature's serene beauty and in his beloved's soothing presence. Their shared dreams within these gardens spoke louder than any confession, revealing truths about each other that words could scarcely capture. Emma discovered a strength she never knew existed when James assured her he saw the same resilience shining through their eyes. Together they faced fears of separation with quiet determination. Here in this Eden, where laughter mingled freely and leaves rustled like gentle applause to each joyous moment, love was as much a part of them as it had been when first they met, her bond that transcended mere feelings into something timeless and almost tangible between their entwined fingers. As the moon rode its silvery chariot across the sky's vast canvas above, James leaned in closer to Emma with a kiss so tenderly given it seemed like an offering from his own heart, her symbol of commitment not just for this night, but every future they might face together or apart. It was within such sacred moments that their affection blossomed beyond the constraints of fear and doubt. Here, where dreams wove into reality with threads softer than spider silk, Emma understood love's purest form and bound from worldly concerns, yet untouched by sorrow's touch when it came to remembering each other. Their shared whispers grew faint as they settled deeper under the canopy of intertwined branches that sheltered them like a fortress against time. But even within this sanctuary, where eternity seemed possible, at every turn inevitability lurked just beyond their awareness. Emma and James knew not to fight it. Instead, they chose to accept the transient nature of life as another layer added upon an already rich tapestry that had become much more than a simple backdrop for two people's love story. Here, amidst petals glistening with dew like diamonds, against green velvet curtaining vines and flowers holding echoes of laughter from generations before them, it was the very essence of their journey together that found shelter under these ancient boughs. As they lay side by side, enveloped in a world apart, where every whisper carried wisdom older than themselves, Emma's hand finding its way to her heart felt like homecoming after an odyssey through uncharted seas, a reminder of life's ephemerality that brought them closer. And so the night wove on, with each chapter closing just as they had begun, in a garden where love was eternal yet never ceased evolving. For even if their footsteps would one day fade into memory, here amongst these sacred grounds their story remained forever rooted within this place of refuge and discovery. With every touch that passed between them, Emma knew it wasn't just about the moments to come, but everything they had shared already. All those quiet conversations under moonlights where thoughts poured forth like rivers into seas. Evenings spent chasing fireflies whose light danced upon skin and soul alike. James offered his own hands with a reassurance that felt both new-found yet as familiar to her heartbeat, their connection, an anchor in the sea of life, where waves might rise but never fell too deep, for fear would not find purchase here amidst their entwined fingers or within these verdant walls. As dreams beckoned them further into realms undiscovered and tales yet untold, them or found comfort nestled in James' embrace, knowing that whatever the door might bring forth was already woven with threads of hope spun from love's very essence, a strength not just for themselves, but as an Emma's breath slowed as her eyelids fluttered open beneath a canopy of stars, that filtered through wisps of nighttime clouds, casting dappled patterns across their shared bedroom or place where dreams felt like distant echoes and reality was just the warmth between them. Her heart raced with anticipation for yet another day spent in Jane's company, her mind still buzzing from yesterday's dance under a sky alight with fireflies, each flicker of light igniting forgotten corners of their hearts like distant constellations telling ancient stories only they could read together. As she rose and slipped into the night to retrieve clothing for them both, her simple white shirt that seemed almost tailor-made from a bygone era, coupled with his favorite pair of dark jeans, embraced her fingers tenderly as if he knew exactly what fabric would make him feel most like himself. James greeted the morning's first light not just through sight, but within their shared dreamscapes. Together they had sailed across seas painted in hues no summer 0WN could ever cast, where every wave whispered secrets only meant for them to discover and understand by heart's compass alone. With each step toward the door, leading out into daylight's embrace, her gentle reminder of time passing like sands through an hourglass, always inching forward but never rushing, just as their love seemed eternal yet ever flowering with new blooms at every turn around this very garden where they had first met. And so it was that Emma found her way to the local cafe's doorstep, a quaint establishment known for its comfort food and even more welcoming ambience, an oasis amidst their bustling city life, a place that felt like home whenever she needed refuge or joy in simple pleasures. Inside, James was already waiting by her side as if he had been there all along, watching the world wake up around them, his smile a warmth against any chill of morning air, eyes reflecting an eternity spent within Emma's gaze, an anchor to each new adventure they embarked upon. He ordered 2 cups of coffee and passed one affectionately across the table with their usual routine. He would take her hand in his as if no time had flown since yesterday, tracing circles on its skin until she sighed contentedly into a rhythm that only music could match, perfectly soundtrack to every shared memory they'd ever encountered. Together they wandered through the city streets like old friends exploring familiar paths. Laughter was their constant companion as well, echoing off brick walls and whispering secrets down alleyways where shadows draped themselves around them in a silent promise of safety from prying eyes or intrusive thoughts that might dare encroach upon the sacred haven they had built together. As midday sun reached its zenith, a golden eye casting light on all it touched, Emma and James found respite beneath an ancient willow tree whose sprawling branches seemed to bow down in reverence of their union, a living testament etched into every leaf that time itself could not touch here among these hallowed grounds where whispers carried through the rustle like sacred verses, some for only them. Within this gentle haven they shared stories told with hearts wide open, tales spun from threads of laughter and silk-like secrets held close to their chests until dawn threatened encroach upon the night's embrace. Yet each story felt like a treasure unearthed, for both were willing participants in an odyssey that wove itself around destinations they could not see but only sense with every shared glance or tender touch. James spoke of times long past, recounting tales where heroes fought dragons and princesses found their crowns, but what he truly conveyed was a reminder of life's unpredictable nature, love that knew no bounds nor fear could ever fully encroach upon the sanctity they had built together. Emma listened with eyes brimming over as she sipped on her coffee, fingers entwined in James' own, a gentle squeeze conveying all words lacked in comforting whispers that only their souls could understand. Within this shared silence lay a dialogue deeper than language or time itself. The world continued its spin around them like celestial bodies dancing across the sky, but here they were rooted in each other's company, or testament to love's timeless strength and enduring promise that even when tomorrow seemed uncertain as shifting sands under their feet, Emma knew with every fibre of her being this was where she belonged. And as James and Emma settled deeper into their cocoon of shared dreams amidst tales spun by ancient heroes, time seemed to fold upon itself like a lotus, unfurling under moonlight's tender gaze. The clock chimed the late hour with gentle insistence as its hands danced in endless circles, a reminder that dawn was on the horizon, and their odyssey within these walls might soon find an abrupt pause, if not for them to seize each moment like a lifeline thrown into life's vast ocean. Tonight's recital began with James unveiling his latest discovery, a dusty tome that spoke of legendary beasts and brave souls who had once trod the earth beneath their very feet, weaving through realms where reality blurred at its edges like watercolor on parchment. Emma's eyes widened with every word James unfurled from his lips. She could almost hear the roars of dragons and see shimmering armor as it was described in vivid detail. But what truly captivated her heart were not just tales but echoes that resonated within their own connection. It wasn't long before James shifted from epics to poems whispered down through generations by love-struck bards under starlit skies, verses about passion as fierce and unpredictable as a tempest, yet delicate in its touch like petals of the first bloom. Emma wrapped her arms around his waist tighter with each stanza that spoke to their hearts, finding solace within these melodious words, because they were more than just verses, they were affirmations of love's own language spoken between two willing souls who found courage in vulnerability embrace. As the night deepened and stories flowed like rivers through valleys carved by time, James recounted a particularly poignant tale from his grandmother, a story about an ancient couple whose love stood as testament to devotion, untethered even when kingdoms fell and empires crumbled into dust. Emma leaned in closer with every heart-wrenching twist of the narrative, her breath catching like a held note sustained through ages. Their shared glances became threads that wove this tale tighter around them until it felt as if she could hear whisperings from beyond centuries seeping into these four walls. Their evening took an unexpected turn when James's grandmother's story led to his recollection of a night, not unlike another time he had spent alone with Emma in the ancient library where secrets were penned between lines and destinies etched upon leather-bound dreamscapes. The air grew thick, as if filled with incense from that era when they explored realms within books forgotten by modernity, finding truths not just about themselves, but human spirits' resilience throughout ages, unbroken like the thread of their own love story, a fabric woven through time's loom. As James recounted his experiences in those hallowed halls where knowledge and imagination danced hand in hand, Emma smiled softly at him with eyes glistening under candlelight's flicker. She felt as if he had transported her to another time or place of wonderment not bound by earth's gravity. Their fingers entwined in a gentle squeeze spoke the language that words, however eloquent or vibrant, could never fully express, an oath renewed with every tale they shared and promise made under starlight's watchful gazer, testament to love as timeless as constellations charting stories on night's canvas. The clock tick-tock whispered a lullaby of its own, nudging them towards the embrace of rest that beckoned with sleepy promises and dreamscapes yet uncharted by their souls. Compasses. Within these silent moments lay conversations deeper than spoken language, their connection so intrinsic to their spirits it was felt in every heartbeat. As if on cue, the world outside continued its relentless march forward while James and Emma remained ensconced here amidst tales of heroism that mirrored life's unpredictable journey. Each story a reminder not just of love but of strength found when facing dragons within one's own heart. And as they prepared to bid farewell to the night, hand in hand in their shared cocoon crafted from stories and stardust whispers alike, James whispered into Emma's ear a promise that echoed ancient vows of yore. Together we shall face whatever tomorrow holds with courage found only when Emma and James found themselves lying side by side in their cozy bed as dawn began to hint at its approach through the parting curtains, casting a soft golden glow over everything within reach of sleepy light's tender embrace. The night had been full of stories that danced like dappled sunlight across James' thoughts and Emma's dreams, tales spun from threads woven by an ancient tapestry where love was not just felt, but lived in each threadbare yet cherished memory they shared, taught for a living history within their bedtime rituals. Their conversations had been about heroes of olden times and modern-day legends alike. The tales were a mosaic that painted both joy and sorrow upon life's wide canvas, reminding them just how transient yet profoundly beautiful each moment could be when savored in harmony. Emma recounted days spent chasing butterflies through meadows of daisies, as if she had been there herself. James spoke with a conviction that belied his youthful years about battles fought against dragons not breathing fire, but emanating doubts and fiercer metaphorical odyssey they navigated hand in hand. As the first light of day tiptoed through their room's windowpane like a hesitant guest peering in to join them one last time before departure, James whispered again into Emma's ear that promised he would always be her steadfast hero on this ever-shifting quest called life. Together we shall face whatever tomorrow holds with courage found only when, and as the words slipped out of him like pearls cast upon velvet water, it seemed to echo not just a vow but an incantation and invocation for protection against unseen future dragons that might yet seek their hearts. Without realizing they had spoken them aloud until now, and having been enveloped by the comforting arms of sleep's own embrace, Emmer's breath fell in gentle rhythms beside James, a mirror to his whispered assurance as her shared heartbeat that thrummed with unspoken understanding. It was within this sacred pause between dream and wakefulness where both found solace, for as much as they ventured through stories of fantastical beasts, it was the dragon in their own hearts' labyrinthine passage spheres that sometimes lurked just out of sight when shadows grew long with night's advance. The clock on Emmer and James' bedroom wall chimed its persistent yet endearing song as another hour melted away into the ether beyond their window, a gentle reminder not only of time's relentless flow, but also that this chapter was drawing to an inevitable close like so many other stories had done before. Their bond seemed cocoon-like amidst tales and whispering winds, symphonous or shared warmth against the coming cold mornings, just as their love for each other shielded them from life's frosty uncertainties with an armor fashioned not of steel but stardust. And then there was silence, a tranquil hush that settled over Emmer and James like twin shawls on shoulders too weary to bear the day's burden, alone in understanding born from night's endowment, where every whisper shared had been an echo against time itself. Not just moments in history, but also heartbeats within their own timeless journey. As they rose with bodies saw and eyes heavy as if laden by dreamt of adventures yet to come, James took Emmer's hand one last time before the doorway opened, inviting them into a world that continued its relentless march forward without pause or pardon for sleep's gentle trespass. "Sleep well," he murmured as they stepped across their threshold back into reality. His voice was not just an utterance, but an anchor to steady themselves amidst the tempest of waking life, or beacon that promised safe harbor in moments yet unborn, where tomorrow's dragons might roar with lesser fury against this love-forged shield they bore. Their story was a tapestry as intricate and enduring as time itself. Each day spun from the threads of yesterday's dreams, woven into patterns that only together could be seen, or constellation map charting their course through life's unpredictable odyssey. And in this morning light breaking upon a world just beyond reach for Emmer and James as they stepped apart to greet it individually once more, the promise of stories yet unsung lingered like dew today, as on countless mornings past she reached across to turn down her grandmother's heirloom teapot with hands that felt both foreign and intimate in the silence of James' absence. A smile would play upon her lips at a memory, and teaching her how to fold napkins into elaborate shapes for family dinners, or catching up on his latest travel adventure as they discussed exotic lands over shared cups of tea. Their laughter echoed warmly against the tick-tock that had become all too familiar. As steam rose from a pot and whisked through her senses like delicate tendrils of mist in an early spring morning's foggy fields, Emmer's thoughts turned to James with fondness tinged by sorrow. He was embarking on another expedition that brought him closer not just geographically, but also spiritually. She imagined the young explorer absorbed in his studies and experiences as they ventured deeper into uncharted territories of both earthly science and metaphysical philosophy, a balance between mind and soul he had always maintained with such graceful poise that it seemed almost divine to her heart tides. Their last shared adventure before the world called him away took them through verdant valleys where emerald canopies played host to whispering winds of change, down cobblestone paths lined by ancient oaks whose gnarled roots felt like stories themselves, tales etched into every bark and leaf. There was a beauty in the way James marveled at each discovery. His eyes would sparkle with an inner light that reflected their shared love for knowledge as much as it did respect for nature's boundless wonders. It wasn't long ago when they stood hand in hand by those very trees, watching children play amongst the foliage while birds sang in harmonious chorus above, an orchestra of life that seemed to celebrate their union and its promise for eternity within each note played. The world had been a blur around them then. Through love's lens only they could perceive time's relentless march as if it were but one more winding stream in the forest, meandering effortlessly towards an unknowable sea of possibility and potential futures yet to come. Emmer sighed lightly, for moments like these often brought her back not just thoughts of James' exploits abroad or dreams that lay ahead as he continued his global pursuits, but also those tender memories they had built together, each a sacred cornerstone in the edifice of their shared history. In this mosaic of experiences and heartfelt connections, both personal and intellectual, she found solace, for every ending was an invitation to begin again within her soul's sanctuary, where James's spirit would forever reside alongside echoes of laughter, footprints in the sand they had traced as one at sunset on distant shores. Now that he began a new chapter far from home did not mean their own story was concluding. Quite contrary to this notion, it only marked another passage through life's grand tapestry, with threads of gold and silver woven by the hands of love itself, emboldened ever forward as if time were but an artist's palette laden with infinite hues. Their journey together was a testament not just to individual strength or shared experiences alone. No, it stood instead for hope in human connection across all divides and distances that might separate them physically, yet drew their spirits closer than ever before within the intangible realm of emotional resonance which knew neither space nor time. As Emma sipped her tea, feeling its warmth seep through to comforting places along her skin like a natural balm for tired limbs and weary heart alike, she couldn't help but feel an underlying current within herself that was not just about James' absence. It spoke of the love they had been fortunate enough to share, its roots as deep in memory banks both personal and universal. And although life would continue on without her partner, by physical presence alone at this moment, she knew their spirits remained intertwined across every shared dream that sprang forth from twilight musings into morning light. A test. Emma closed her eyes for a brief moment to take in the warmth from James' embrace that seemed as constant now as it had been years ago, even when he was not beside her physically. Their shared dreams painted with strokes of love and whispers of times gone by. As she opened them once more, her gaze rested on his familiar figure, seated across the old oak table in the garden beneath a sky awash with twilight's last blush. He was reading aloud from an ancient book whose leather-bound cover had felt like velvet to their fingertips. The sun, reluctant yet determined not to abandon its course just because James and Emma were now apart by distance. The stars seemed eager in contrast, as if celebrating his solitude with cosmic applause for each line he recited from forgotten law that spanned centuries of human thought and feeling, all while she remained comforted only by memories like these. With a sigh carrying both melancholy and love's tender echoes within its timbre, Emma reached across to brush her fingers against his hand, as if trying not just for the warmth, but also reaching out into their shared past with tenderness that surpassed mere touch, connecting them in an embrace without physical restraint. His voice fell away from words on parchment, and they were alone together again, two souls wrapped up under a canopy of stars, as intimate companions against the vastness outside. Her heart's rhythm harmonized with his pulse like synchronicity crafted not just by love, but also life's unpredictable tempo. Their journey through time had been an odyssey, each day adding a sentence to their shared narrative, some penned in laughter and others scribed under the shadow of trials. Yet they wove together like threads that no fray could touch, because love fortified them with indestructible strength. As Emma listened quietly beside him, her thoughts danced between past joys and future aspirations, where James' unwavering support had been a beacon during life's tempests, the anchor to which she clung when waves of uncertainty threatened to erode their resolve. He was both lighthouse keeper and companion aboard this voyage that traversed oceans within hearts. He closed his book with reverence, as if ending one chapter in a novel they co-authored daily through shared experiences. Emma watched the light fading from James' eyes, mirroring twilight's own surrender to night. Their laughter had always carried into dreamscapes, where reality melted away like wax before flame. This sacred communion of mind and spirit, an ethereal bridge between worlds known only through touches that transcended mere physical proximity. It was this sanctuary they both held dear, despite the absence now imposed by miles stretching their love across continents or oceans as needed to connect them. Yet tonight felt different, not because of a change in themselves, but due to nature's gentle nudge that even seasons must yield and time's relentless march forward. The trees whispered secrets through rustling leaves about cycles beyond human reign, while stars hummed lullabies from their ancient constellations. Emma knew James sensed this too. He would feel her presence in his dreaming mind as surely as if she were there beside him, just because they had been each other's constant. an unspoken understanding that transcended the mere spoken word, which often failed to encapsulate their bond's essence. As night deepened and darkness embraced them like a comforting shroud, Emma leaned closer, not for warmth, but in longing for just one more shared moment with James. Her heart ached without him physically beside her, as if the universe itself conspired to remind of his absence. Yet, despite this yearning whisper that echoed within their separate beds and apart walls at night, she knew dawn would come once again, bringing new chapters written not just in ink but with hopeful dreams. A shared legacy sculpted by love's indomitable force through every challenge encountered or joy discovered. Emma wrapped her arms around herself like one of the many comforting quilts that had graced their bed, each patch representing moments tender and strong. This fabric was woven from experiences alone, laughter threads interlaced with sobs when sorrow seeped into life's weave. As she lay back on her pillow under his steady breath, now muffled by the night's embrace, Emma realized that love did not just endure through physical presence but thrived in shared dreamscapes and silent understandings. As Emma's eyelids fluttered open to a sky painted with hues of pink and orange by daybreak, she felt an unusual peace settle within her chest, like the first tender rays of sunlight that peek through after long night skies. The ticking clock seemed to hum lullabies in their sleepy way as it counted down towards morning's embrace with life once more. It was a moment so ordinary, yet profoundly sacred, for on this day she would celebrate her birthday alone, since James had gone overseas before the year began and promised to return only when his mission could be completed, an indefinite extension of their separation that tugged at Emma's heartstrings every time it was acknowledged. Her hands, still warm from encasing herself within layers of blankets her late mother had gifted them years ago on the day she learned to walk, found solace as they traced patterns in the air, a silent dance that spoke volumes when words were insufficient between two lovers separated by continents. In those moments, Emma felt James beside her, his laughter and whispers of love still echoing within these walls painted with their shared dreams. Emma rose slowly from bed, feeling the softness beneath her feet, a carpet that seemed to have absorbed every tear shed upon it during nights when silence stretched between them like an abyss too vast for mere words alone could bridge. She moved through the house with methodical steps towards James' desk, where scattered papers lay strewn across, remnants of his work, a silent testament to their shared passion and commitment that no distance would ever diminish in her heart or eyesight. The sun had now crested its zenith when Emma found herself wandering into the garden outside, James' haven, where he often sought refuge from reality with just soil, seeds, and his hands, tools enough to craft beauty out of barren landscapes, as they did in their relationship. Here was a place that felt like home even if it stood apart on this vast estate owned by her family for generations, an oasis where memories bloomed alongside the flowers he had planted with tender care, nurturing them daily not just to thrive, but also reflecting his own growth in strength and resilience. Taking a seat upon one of James' old wooden benches that stood beside their favorite rose bush, which now bore an exquisite bloom as if adorned by the very stars above, Emma allowed herself a moment to simply breathe, her heart aching with love for him yet embracing hope like morning dew clung onto petals. It was in these quiet moments of reflection that she found comfort, not just because James had loved deeply and unapologetically, but also due to the way he cherished every shared experience, big or small, how his absence felt less acute when their bond seemed almost tangible amidst nature's embrace. As Emma stood up from her reverie beneath a canopy of leaves that rustled with secrets and sighs alike, she noticed fresh footprints on the path leading away, not hers, but those belonging to James, who had decided this morning was perfect for some last-minute exploration before he returned. A small smile tugged at her lips as memories rushed forward. How often they two would embark upon spontaneous adventures, finding joy in simple pleasures and discovery alike, a reminder that even when the world seemed to spin out of control around them both, their love remained steadfastly anchored within each other's souls. Descending back towards her quarters as dusk approached with whispering winds that carried tales from lands James had yet to see for himself, Emma paused at the door frame where she and he would often stand hand in hand, his arm around her shoulders, warmth radiating between them like an unspoken promise of forever. But now it was just a picture frame nestled upon shelves lined with mementos from their past shared escapades, each object holding stories within that only they could fully appreciate together as friends turned into something far greater over time, two hearts inseparable despite miles and minutes lost to life's demands. As the stars began dotting the night sky, Emma decided it was time for supper, a simple meal crafted with ingredients from their garden that had been tended so lovingly by James, flavors rich enough to remind her of him and yet unique in its own right, an ode homage paid through love's language. Eating at the table, she thought back upon how they would always find ways for each other amidst life's relent as Emma sat at their weathered but cherished dining table set with utensils and plates lovingly polished by James. She let her hands wander over its surface, an intimate dance of fingertips across wood that had borne witness to countless meals shared in love's embrace. With each chop of the knife through their garden vegetables, memories unfurled like tendrils from deep within a bedtime storybook. Laughter echoed between her and James as they tried new recipes, evenings spent with music playing softly while preparing dinner together for friends who had become family. The comfort of familiarity brought Emma to the door that stood silent guard at their home's entrance, holding within it memories so dear she could almost hear them whisper in her ear, a testament to time's passage as much as love itself. She drew out from its shadows an old leather-bound journal and settled into one of their favorite armchairs by the window overlooking blooming flowers that seemed eager participants each season, mirroring Emma's own blossoming feelings for James despite his absence in her life these past months since he had traveled abroad to further his studies. As she wrote with a pen filled from an old fountain pen once used by both of them on countless notes exchanged between long-distance miles and nearness, the soft scratching sound was like distant laughter resonating through her heartstrings. Theirs had been words that needed no translation across time or distance. She transcribed into pages a recipe for rainbow stew, inspired by one of James' favorite dishes they once made together after Emma learned to cook from him, and it always seemed as if the colors in his eyes danced with delight whenever he tasted her culinary creations. Their shared language tonight was no different. She envisaged how much more vibrant these flavors would be when prepared tonight under moonlight's watchful gaze while James lay soundly asleep in a field far from home, yet forever within Emma's thoughts and dreams. This presence felt not only through the quietude of their love, but also amidst every leafy scent that permeated her quaint kitchen. After dinner concluded with its final morsel disappearing into James' eager belly across seas from where he currently resided, Emma allowed herself a moment's reprieve to simply breathe in the night air as she placed their meal aside. It was time for bedtime stories and dream weaving. She rose with deliberate slowness that seemed almost sacrosanct against life's hectic tempo, her feet touching cold, hardwood floors barely warmed by a single flickering candle's glow atop an heirloom table just beside the bed where James slept each night. A tender smile played upon Emma's lips as she began to recount tales of days spent together, once filled with innocence and joy, wrapped in golden hues that felt like nothing more than echoes within her heart's chambered hallways. These memories were the very threads binding their souls even when physical space kept them apart. As sleep beckoned softly to James from beneath a blanket heavy enough to feel as if it cradled both of them together, she whispered words only he could understand, her voice carrying through dreams like an anchor that steadied the tumultuous seas they navigated life with him upon distant shores. When finally sleep enfolded Emma within its embrace under a canopy woven by moonbeams streaming in from their window, she felt as though James was right there beside her, every tender caress and shared look locked forever into the timeless tapestry of love that united them beyond miles. With each breath surrendering to sleep's lullaby until dormant eyelids closed for a well-deserved rest, Emma thought about their next day together. Fingers traced patterns along the spine of her journal before returning it safely into its nook within an antique dresser where they kept all shared treasures. A small sigh slipped past lips untouched by sleep's touch as memories danced through Emma's mind, each one a gentle reminder that despite life pulling them apart at times for education or work obligations, the foundation of their love remained firmly rooted like an ancient oak tree within her heart. As stars continued to dot heavens above while she slept soundly on fluffy pillows beneath warm blankets, Emma knew tomorrow would bring another day filled with laughter and shared experiences, that only fortified the bond they cherished so dearly. A love story written as dawn's first light crept through Emma's window pane and painted golden hues across her room. She stirred in a gentle awakening from sleep to find James still nestled beside her bed, his presence as comforting as ever with the touch of their shared dream. It had been months since they were apart due to college commitments, but life's unpredictable nature demanded it for Emma's research project, and she embraced this temporary separation not without a pang in her heart, knowing that each tick of time carried them further from one another physically, yet remained eternally intertwined emotionally. Emma lifted the corner of their quilt to peek outside, where daylight was stretching its fingers across the sky, signaling James' imminent arrival for breakfast, a meal that would invariably include his favorite scrambled eggs and crispy bacon, accompanied by endless cups of steaming coffee. She could almost hear him saying her name with affectionate anticipation as he entered their quiet kitchen, where the smell of freshly ground beans mingled with hints of butter melting on hot toast, a scent that always brought back memories flooded in warmth and love. Before Emma knew it, breakfast was finished. They both cleaned up quickly, as if trying not to linger too long for fear the world outside might still be waking when he needed her most. His constant companion through thick and thin life throws their way since childhood days, spent building sandcastles by a seaside cliff, with each wave crashing into those very rocks. She felt anchored in place, with James as steadfastly rooted to these moments of blissful simplicity amidst the ever-changing tides of adulthood they had navigated together. Their conversation meandered through topics light and heavy alike, shared laughter over old high school anecdotes, tender exchanges about aspirations for their future as a couple, while simultaneously cherishing these immediate moments before him. She found herself yearning to wrap her arms around his neck, again beneath the table where they had once laughed until tears stained their cheeks. Yet Emma knew too well that this desire was but an echo of past warmth, reminding them both how vital it is for one another's hearts not just survive these separations, which were inevitable given career paths and personal growth demands, but thrive alongside the steadfast foundation they had built upon their shared experiences. As James packed his suitcase with a sense of purpose, Emma felt her heart swell at this reminder that he was preparing for yet another journey, one where she would not be able to accompany him physically as often due to work obligations back in the city they called home. Nevertheless, their souls were united through shared experiences, even when miles stretched between them. The last thing Emma needed before stepping into her day was for James' affectionate goodbye embrace, a promise that every morning would see him once more by her side despite distances and circumstances dictating otherwise at times throughout the year, their connection transcending mere physicality to touch deeper realms of emotional closeness. With his departure imminent but soon behind them as they left for another adventure together, this time closer in proximity than any other since college graduation days, when both had taken divergent paths, only recently converging once more into a shared future, Emma closed her journal that lay open on the antique dresser, its pages heavy with scribbled dreams and poignant reflections of love untainted by worldly chaos. Inscribed within was an eternal testament to their enduring bond. Every word they had penned a step further into understanding one another's souls beyond simple companionship. It became the compass guiding them through stormy seas and serene waters alike, even when life's tumultuous waves threatened against shores of vulnerability. As Emma turned her gaze towards James, standing at their doorstep just as his bus rolled out from behind a row of trees, graying but still full of youthful zest that resonated deeply within her heart's chambers, where memories mingled with promises yet to be fulfilled, she knew the next day would unfurl countless possibilities. Though they both understood well-earned rest awaited them after long days spent exploring new cultures, landscapes, and experiences, each offering opportunities for growth as individuals while also fortifying their unbreakable bond in a shared journey of love. It was this thought alone that held Emma close to her chest like an indexed zero-usable treasure. As she watched his bus disappear into the distance, leaving behind nothing but empty seats and echo, Emma leaned back against her pillow as she closed her eyes and let out a soft sigh of contentment, feeling lighter than air midst their journeys, adventures that had melted away any lingering fatigue from James' day at work or Emma's explorations in distant lands. His laughter echoed faintly through the room as he recounted his encounters with people and places, painting vivid imagery of shared experiences yet to come. The book on their dresser stood open, a testament not just to love, but also growth, for each word they had written over time was now imbued with wisdom that came from living through challenges together while maintaining trust in the unwavering strength between them. As night approached and shadows crept across their cozy room, Emmer imagined where this journey would lead next, perhaps a new city to explore or even further afield for an authentic cultural immersion that promised personal evolution as much as it did romantic fulfillment. These experiences were not just about witnessing the world, but also learning from each other and understanding deeper facets of their own beings, which in turn strengthened them individually and collectively on this voyage they embarked upon together every day since fate had crossed their paths years ago under a moonlit sky near an ancient cobblestone street. James' bus rolled out just as the first star blinked into existence outside their window. Emmer felt its departure resonate with something primal within her, like it was not goodbye, but simply another chapter in this story they lived and loved each day, a cycle of coming together and then parting for new adventures. Yet tonight seemed different as he approached to whisper words that were more than just farewells, promises etched into his voice about the next destination on their map, where love would find them once again amidst vibrant culture and uncharted landscapes. A place they had both dreamt of visiting but never imagined could feel so close to heartstrings. Within those shared moments underneath twinkling lights or beside babbling brooks, Emmer found solace in the knowledge that their love was an anchor amid life's ebb and flow, a steady force, as consistent as the northern star guiding sailors homeward through treacherous seas. And just like those stars above them, her heart swelled with warmth for James, not only because he stood at the threshold of another journey, but also due to his Anwar 017 and lie tender gaze that promised new discoveries within and beyond their intertwined souls while they lay nestled in each other's embrace. Their love was akin to an ancient tree, its roots running deep into the earth, drawing strength from stories of old whispered by ancestors who had weathered seasons together through stormy tempests, and yet reaching skyward with new leaves unfurling as they grew ever more resilient against life's changing wind. The book on their dresser was not just a repository for words, but rather an evolving storybook of the souls that danced between them, every chapter woven from strands of joy and trials alike, which had imparted lessons far deeper than any text could convey alone in silent pages or still images. As Emmer whispered her dreams into his ear for one more time, she knew their shared journey was not just about the lands they explored together, but also this intricate dance of souls, a love that transcended beyond simple companionship to touch upon something sacred within them both. It became as much spiritual pilgrimage as physical odyssey. The night's embrace seemed all too gentle, yet promised enough rest for the weary and rejuvenation for hearts afire with passionate pursuit of life's grand tapestry, a canvas they were painting stroke by loving stroke together. Within Emmer lay dormant desires to experience every moment shared in James' presence as if time itself could stretch endlessly between their intertwined fingers, but she also understood that the morrow would beckon with promises of dawn's white, and a new chapter yet unwritten, one where love was not just found, but lived out loud amidst cultures richly different from her own. And as they fell into each other's arms to return once more beneath their shared blanket, Emmer knew that regardless of the miles between them or how time flowed within this world so vast and varied, with James by her side, she could weather any storm because in his eyes was an echoing truth, a reflection back at herself from which they both drew strength. With each passing day beneath starlit skies and sun-soaked landscapes alike, their love became more than just two hearts in this place where time seemed suspended in amber. They discovered a weathered stone cross marking an old battlefield once torn by conflict, but now silent and serene as if nature itself had chosen mercy over malice. Emmer traced her fingertips along the intricate carvings that spoke of valor and sacrifice, while James stood solemnly beside her, his gaze fixed on a distant point where shadows danced with light, at play from an evening sun bidding farewell to daylight's dominion. As they walked through cobbled streets lined by age-old trees that whispered secrets of the earth and sky alike, Emmer shared tales passed down in her family for generations, stories about spirits believed to roam these very lands with messages from ancestors long gone but never forgotten. James listened intently as she spoke, his expression a blend of wonderment at their rich cultural tapestry interwoven into the essence of this place and reverence towards its history, which he had only read about in books back home among steel behemoths that seemed to scream with industries raw. They came upon an open-air market where locals bartered for handmade goods, textiles as vibrant as the blooming flowers and pottery glazed like treasures unearthed from forgotten times. Emma's eyes shimmered, reflecting a myriad of colors, while James watched her with affectionate admiration. He knew that she saw beauty in all things here, just as his heart found solace not only in the arms, but also within this ancient world's embrace which seemed to hum contentedly beneath their steps. As night descended upon them like a velvet curtain at day's end act, they sought refuge under an olive tree that stood sentinel near where once people had gathered and shared stories of love as timeless as the stars overhead, tales not unlike those Emma cherished in her own heart. As she nestled against his chest beneath its sprawling canopy, James wrapped a soft blanket around them both. It was an old one, with patches from different parts of their travels and stories sewn into every thread that bound the fabric together, each stitch holding echoes of laughter shared in joyful sunsets. They spoke little as they lay side by side on a bed made not just for two, but built to accommodate souls seeking rest. Yet when Emma's voice broke through James' silence with soft hymns from her homeland that she learned during times spent nestled among the hills of their first encounter, psalms imbued with hope and longing as if they themselves were characters in one grand love story penned by fate itself, the night stretched on, woven through dreams where Emma lived moments yet unexperienced. She danced at festivals that honored gods of old under moonlit skies, while James stood beside her or painted landscapes with colors borrowed from the earth's palette to immortalize their love within each stroke and blend. With every dawn, Emma felt time bending around them, an endless loop where yesterday would become today when she saw it in his eyes. They were not just living but reliving cherished memories that made the present more precious with its potential for future moments yet to come. It was a cycle of renewal and growth within which their love blossomed, rooted deeply like oaks around them, both standing strong against tempests or sun-drenched days, where laughter pealed as clear bell chimes through the air, as they returned once more beneath that shared blanket each evening to sleep away from this world's bustle and noise. A reprieve not just for their tired bodies, but also an act of defiance against life's relentless pace. Emma knew her heart was full. Every moment spent with James here in the embrace of ancient lands became another thread woven into the fabric of who they were. And though tomorrow would bring them back to faces unfamiliar or streets echoing different cadences from what their souls had become accustomed within these rolling hills, Emma felt an assurance that no matter where life's journey might take her, she could hold on to this love as a constant star guiding through night through. For James too found strength in the truth reflected back at Emma nestled into James's arms beneath a sky painted with hues of orange and purple as twilight gave way to nightfall, their faces bathed in moonlight that filtered through ancient oak leaves like scattered gold dust on velvet fabric. The day had been long, punctuated by moments so vivid they seemed too precious for the mundane world beyond these rolling hills, where every stone and brook held whispers of centuries past, each carrying tales older than time itself. In this timeless expanse, Emma felt her spirit weave seamlessly into James's as he gently guided their shared bed back to its rightful place, a sanctuary amidst the wild beauty that surrounded them. It was here in these moments of pure connection and quiet intimacy where memories danced like fireflies around an unspoken bubble, shielding him from all else but her presence. As James's fingers found their way to Emma's temple, a touch as familiar and comforting as the gentle waves lapping at ancient cliffs along this sacred shore of affection, he began softly recounting stories etched into his heart during long days exploring these very lands, tales that seemed imbued with an essence beyond mere human experience. "Do you remember our first encounter by the river bank?" James whispered against her lips as they sighed in tandem beneath a shared canopy of dreams and whispers from yesteryears. Emma nodded, but it was not just an echo she heard. Rather, his words painted vibrant scenes across their mind's tapestry, the warmth of sunlight on her skin as they laughed under that same ancient oak, where now stood two souls in love. She closed her eyes and could feel once again how every touch had ignited a spark within them both. It was no mere ember, but an eternal flame refusing to be smothered by the passing of time or distance from loved ones. Their laughter mingled with rustling leaves, creating melodies that lulled their thoughts into serenity as they drifted through memories. Every cherished second a brushstroke on an ever-expanding canvas where love was not just felt, but lived in the rich earth of these hills. The night deepened around them like velvet curtains, and James drew Emma closer until their breaths were indistinguishable from one another's rhythms. A symphony composed by nature itself on this starkest eve where love transcended the mere physicality of bodies. In his arms was her solace. In these lands they had found an anchor against life's relentless currents that sought to erode their very essence, until here as dawn approached with its tentative fingers reaching into dream-soaked valleys and sleepy woods, a harbinger of endings yet, unraveling, Emma held James tighter, her heart thrumming in harmony with the promise each new day carried, an embrace that bound them not just to one another, but also across time itself. For what is love if not immutable and eternal, like these ancient hills themselves, weathered yet steadfast, like this couple whose souls had entwined beneath a celestial isle ballet of starlight? Their essence became part of the land's enduring lullaby that whispered to them all night long, as they surrendered once more into sleep's embrace within those sacred walls where memories were both forged and cherished. Emma knew with a soulful certainty, no matter how far tomorrow took her, this love was the compass by which she would navigate through life's stormy seas. And James felt too, not just in his heart, but within every fibre of being, that resonated with their shared journey, for he knew without a shadow of doubt, whatever trials lay ahead or what unforeseen paths might cross beneath these ever-watchful skies, the strength they found here was more than enough to face them all together. Their love, as old and deep as this timeless land itself, would forever be their guide through nights starry with dreams just out of reach on one side, or sunlit peaks towering majestically beyond where reality dared not tread upon the other. It was a light that burned undimmed, casting its golden glow over all they had yet to become. And so as Emma's thoughts drifted into dreamscapes woven from threads of past and future, places touched by love's hand in both realms, where joy echoed through valleys hollow with the laughter of Emma's, thoughts continued to weave through dreamscapes as night deepened around her and James beside her on their shared bed, a tapestry of visions stretching out beneath them. Memories melded seamlessly with aspirations for the morrow. In one such reverie, they found themselves standing once more within those sacred walls which had been both witness to history's whispers and bearer of their own stories, silent echoes, a land where time seemed as fluid as water in an ancient riverbed that flowed through generations, like stories passed down by the firelight. As she closed her eyes, Emma felt not just dreamy contentment, but also clarity, for within these visions lay revelations about their shared journey and its path ahead, which only love could unveil with such tender truthfulness. She saw herself in this land of timeless beauty, a woman whose heart had weathered storms, yet always remained anchored by the strength of her bond to James, an anchor as constant as the ancient mountains that watched over their home and history alike. In one visionary scene where reality seemed indistinguishable from reverie, Emma discovered herself walking hand in hand with a figure not unlike herself but bearing no resemblance, another woman who had walked this path of love before her own journey began. She was shown the trials and tribulations that they faced together, moments when fears threatened to cloud their certainty, times when doubt whispered doubts against hope's melody, yet always in the end these whispers were silenced by a resolve deeper than any river cutting through stone, love's unwar zero-bedded will. Emma then found herself with James within those same walls of dream-woven history where they once vowed themselves to each other beneath an embered sky, promising that no matter the distance nor time's passage, their shared heartbeat would remain a rhythm in sync, unwavering and true. The vision endured into futures not yet born, children with eyes alight like morning sunrise on dew-kissed fields, grandchildren whose laughter was as infectious to her soul as it had been theirs at the start of this voyage upon life's sea, waves lapping tenderly against timeless shores. And within these reveries, where past and future danced in one eternal embrace, she realized that love did not merely guide them through darkened night, but illuminated paths, unseen to wondering eyes such as hers. It led her heart with the confidence of seasons, knowing when winter's chill might threaten their warmth or summer's blaze could scorch. Love was a compass whose needle pointed steadfastly towards unity and understanding, ever guiding them through every possible storm to find safe harbors in one another's arms. As the night seemed as deep and enveloping as her dreamscapes, she knew that this love had not just been forged within these sacred walls, but was a legacy etched into their very beings, an indelible mark of strength passed down like heirlooms through generations yet to come. It wasn't merely the compass by which Emma would navigate life's stormy seas. It had become her chart, and James, well established within every fibre that composed his being as if interlaced with their timeless land itself. A truth felt so intensely now in each beat of shared rhythm. Their love was not just hers or his alone, but belonged to the entire lineage whose roots touched these ancient stones and whispered tales into her soul, narratives that had been lovingly passed from one heart-bonded pair to another across centuries, a continuum where every beat of their own joined this venerable legacy. It was love's thread woven through history's grand tapestry, its pattern repeated in the knitting and unraveling of lives that had come before them, binding into one shared narrative which they were now both authors and characters within, a story with an ending yet to be written as well. Within these dreamscapes where time held no dominion over their emotions or memories, the world outside its windows faded away until it was but a backdrop against this rich landscape of connection and communal heartbeat. Emma knew that even though they might sail into uncharted waters tomorrow, each step taken together would be in lockstep with love's enduring echo, an irrefutable guide through starry nightscapes where dreams were but reflections on the water's surface of their shared lives. As she awoke from her slumbering reverie into James' warmth, he wrapped his arm